Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. I am thrilled and delighted to have right here in studio a rock and roll Hall of Famer whose album that was released in June, and I'm holding it up for the audience, Before This World, went #1 on the Billboard charts, which, believe it or not, is the first time in the illustrious career of my guest that has ever happened. Please welcome to the program James Taylor. Good to see you, sir.
Rich, my pleasure. Nice to be here.
Oh, my gosh. What an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
On this program.
My honor.
You are most welcome. Let's talk about this album, and it is the first one with original music of yours in well over a decade. Why did you decide to just say, you know what, I'm going to sit down, come up with some new tunes, and put it on an album?
You know, it was time to do it again. That's actually in the 12 years since the last studio album, original material, we released 5 different albums. So, you know, those take time and they take a lot of energy, and they sort of stand in for making one of these albums. But and those were great projects. There was a Christmas album. There was a sort of a theater piece almost that we did, and did it in DVD, which was just a thing called One Man Band. Then we did a couple of covers albums, and I did a project with Carole King when she and I called Troubadour Reunion.
Oh, yeah.
So there was actually a lot of recording going on, but it was just way overdue for me to write some new stuff and to go through this process, which is something I've been perfecting, or at least improving over the course of my career. It's the 16th time I've taken a batch of my own songs into the studio and made a record with it. So, and that's a process that I've learned to do, you know, over time. And I really wanted to do it again.
James Taylor here with me on the Rich Eisen Show. When was the first time you ever did anything with Carole King? When did you ever meet her?
You know, Carole and I actually met in 1966 in New York City when I was playing in a little club. She was living with Jerry Goffin, her writing partner and husband, in New Jersey. But she came in and evidently met us, my band, The Flying Machine, in this little club where we had a standing gig in Greenwich Village in New York City. That was in '66, and I don't remember it.
You don't
Carole
remember?
remembers it, but I don't.
Okay. And
we then met out here in Los Angeles after I had made my album for Apple Records, and Peter Asher, my manager and producer, moved out here to L.A., and we started work on Sweet Baby James out here, the Warner Brothers album that had Fire and Rain and was my first real success. And it was during the making of that I met Carole. She had, you know, there are people who are central in your life at various times, and a guy named Danny Korchmar, we call him Cooch, he was the guitar player I worked with him in '65. I had a band with him in New York, that band I was talking about. And Cooch had started working here in Los Angeles with Carole King, who had moved out to try her luck with her own career. So that's when I met Carole.
And, you know, when people hear now in 2015 Apple Records, they probably think, you know, iPhones, iPads, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, far different ball of wax when you were there for Apple Records, because that was the Beatles label. When you were shooting, or when you were obviously not shooting, when you were recording this album in London for Apple Records, is it true that the White Album was being recorded right next door to what you were doing?
Yeah, that's right. It wasn't right next door. It was in the same studio. I was sort of alternating with the Beatles. When they would finish one of their marathon sessions, I'd sort of scurry into the studio and put down a few tracks. And occasionally, Paul and George actually played on one of the songs, Carolina in My Mind. And
they played on that song?
They played on Carolina.
What were they playing?
Well, Paul played bass and George sang a background part with me. But they were around, and I got to be a fly on the wall, which was, for me, I was such a huge Beatles fan, and I couldn't believe my luck. I just, I was living the dream. It was like, I had to pinch myself daily.
So did they volunteer to do this, or did you ask them to do that for Carolina on My Mind? How did that come about, James?
Yeah, Paul liked the song, and, I asked him to play on it, and he just sort of recruited George, I think, to come in. And, but it was, there was just a lot of, we had a lot of contact as we would change over the studio from my little project to their, marathon, like I said, these long sessions
Sure.
that they would do. Usually the Beatles recorded at EMI's studio there at Abbey Road
Sure.
in London.
Oh, yeah.
But in this case, there was a new thing called an 8-track recorder, and Abbey Road didn't. They didn't trust it yet, so the Beatles went to this studio in Soho called Trident, and because Trident had this board and the 8-track recorder, which was amazing freedom to have all of these tracks. So that's where they worked, and that's where I also worked.
James Taylor here with me in the Rich Eisen Show studio. Before This World, available right now, where should I say where records are sold? Because I am holding up a vinyl right here.
Wherever that is.
I know, you know what I mean? That's what they used to say. I'm holding up the vinyl right here. I don't remember the last time I held up a vinyl album, but I'm doing so right now. It debuted back in June, #1 atop the Billboard charts. What is the most personal song of yours for you? What would you label the most personal song?
Well, I'm a very sort of autobiographical kind of writer, and so there are a lot of songs that are very, sort of personally close. I'd say Sweet Baby James and Carolina in My Mind, and love songs to my wife Kim, Caroline, I See You, a song on this album, You and I Again.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are very closely held. Yeah.
And well, many people would bring up Fire and Rain.
Sure.
Would you
Yeah.
would you not put that at the top of the list?
I would definitely. That would be in there. That was like 3 snapshots within about a month of each other at a certain period in my life, 1968, 69, and it really takes me back to that time to play it, to live it again.
Is it tough for you to sing that song?
No, it's great. I mean, sometimes it's been intense. It's been intense. I played it in front of an audience at Madison Square Garden that Paul McCartney had arranged a big concert for New York City after 9/11. Gee, was it in October? It may have been as soon as October after in 2001. So, singing that song to that audience, which was in many cases the widows, the families of people who'd been lost in 9/11. That was an intense moment.
Well, my wife and I saw you here in Los Angeles at the Hollywood Bowl 2.5 weeks after 9/11. It was late September, wow. And we remember how intense it was to go to a public gathering, and we're wondering, the security was off the charts to get in there that night. And the way you performed, and the way it was one of those moments where it just felt normal for one of the first times. And that's part of the reason why I'm bringing it up, is to thank you personally for what you did that night for all of us there in that spot, singing about love and and happiness and things of that nature, and also so soulfully for all these other songs. I'm wondering, what was it like for you to perform that night, James?
You know, that's we were on the road, and there was a break of about 10 days, during which time 9/11 happened. But we were supposed to get back out on the road and reconvene in Seattle. And following Seattle, we were working down the West Coast to Los Angeles to play that gig at the Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there were no flights. There was nothing. We managed to charter a plane that did a sweep of the East Coast. It stopped in Nashville, picked up some people. It stopped in New York and picked up a couple of musicians. It picked me up in Albany, New York, and then flew across the country to Seattle. And everyone, all of my band who were on the West Coast drove up.
Mm-hmm.
And from there on, we traveled by bus. But it was an amazing thing to be on the road and playing to, you know, we of course asked ourselves whether we should do it, actually, whether it was appropriate to go out and, you know, but I hate to cancel. And I only had to do it once or twice in all the years. Maybe I should have a couple of times, but at any rate, it was amazing. The audiences were everything was so deep. It was so profound, like anything that you know, it's always a big deal what the connection is with the audience and what you feel from that kind of group energy, that sort of ad hoc community that comes together to listen to a concert. It's always intense and very compelling. It's what keeps me coming back to it, is that I love that thing, that sort of communal thing that happens. But man, after 9/11, it was intense. And we may have taken a few of the more irreverent and celebratory party time tunes out of but actually, I don't think we even did much of that. I think, you know, it just turns out that a lot of the songs that we were doing in that tour, they worked in that context. You know, I don't know if it would have been the same, you know, if I were, instead of James Taylor, if I were Rush or White Snake or something going out and playing after 9/11, it might have been a different vibe, you know, but it was good. It was, for us, it was amazing, and it really felt like the right thing to do. So we had an amazing stretch.
Well, speaking for those who were sitting in the audience that night, you were spot on about that. I want to take a quick break. We'll come back in a minute. I want to talk some sports with you. So
Great.
This is track 3 on this album is Angels of Fenway, as we've all heard that for weeks and weeks and months now. So we'll talk about some sports, some Red Sox, and maybe a little Patriots with you when we come back. But James Taylor here in a minute on The Rich Eisen Show.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to The Rich Eisen Show. James Taylor is here. You just kindly asked me, by the way, you just asked me one of the greatest questions that I can ever get asked is, what sports did I play in college? Because I did not. That's why I talk about it for a living.
Right.
I realized early on, James, that I couldn't hit the curveball. The jump shot wasn't falling on the basketball court, you know. But I'm touched you would even ask me that question. Thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. You're an enthusiast, and you know that explains it.
That I am. Did you ever get on a sports diamond yourself?
You know, you know, when I was in high school, I played sports which were mandatory in the school that I went to, and I played hockey, I played basketball, I played soccer, I played some football.
What'd you do in football?
I was an end.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were rushing the passer? Is that what you're doing?
I was receiving passes.
Oh, so you were receiving passes.
Yeah.
So what were you? What would you say you were? Did you have burning speed to go down the field?
I was pretty fast. Yeah. I mean, I looked like a deck chair in a high wind, but I was fast. Yeah.
So your game was to basically stretch the field, go down the field, and
yeah.
Did you ever score a touchdown in a game?
Yeah, I think I did.
Okay.
Again, you know, this wasn't. This was what was called intramural sports, which means I wasn't on a varsity team.
Okay.
I just, I was more into music, and but I loved it, and no particular secret about the fact that I had a substance abuse history, and in the early '80s, I sort of traded addictions. I went from being substance abuse to activity addicted.
Mm-hmm.
I literally worked out 3 hours, did something extremely physical 3 hours a day. So, and that's the way I sort of got my meat suit back,
Your meat suit.
My body back, yeah.
I like that. Interesting.
And so I've gotten into a lot of sports relatively late in life. I was 35 when I started getting active. And, a lot of those things, there really are no team sports. I do cross-country skate skiing. I row. Mm-hmm. I hike and I skate. But I really am deeply. I ride bicycle and kayak and stuff like that. All that stuff that people do to stay active.
But in terms of your team sports, you're more of a spectator, and we all know about your love for the Boston Red Sox. That's right. This has been stuff of legend.
It's a funny thing.
Well.
I got into the Red Sox through Maestro Seiji Ozawa, who was the conductor of the Boston Symphony and a huge baseball fan, but Red Sox fan.
Okay.
To this day. Yeah.
And he's the one who's like, you gotta.
Well, my wife worked with the Boston Symphony for 25, 30 years.
Sure.
And is still very closely connected with Boston Symphony Orchestra. So Seiji just got her into baseball in a major way. So when we met, I was reintroduced to I had been identified myself as a Red Sox fan really all my life. But we lived in North Carolina. There was no professional team.
Well, it's more basketball down there.
Yeah, it's more basketball.
It's more like, the Tar Heels or NC State or Duke.
Absolutely.
Do you have any partiality towards a college basketball team down in Carolina?
We were raised in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We were Tar Heels. Absolutely. It was a matter of, it's a loyalty oath down there.
Did you ever meet Dean Smith?
Yeah, I did.
No kidding.
Yeah.
James Taylor here on the Rich Eisen Show. What was that story about? What was your meeting with Dean Smith like?
My brothers and I and my sister and a couple of friends of ours decided to go caroling one Christmas Eve, well lubricated, and we sang outside Dean Smith's house, which was down the street from where my mom and dad lived.
And he came out?
Yeah, he did.
What happened?
Said hello. I mean, it's hazy, like so much. It's hazy, foggy, but. Yeah, no, I did.
No kidding.
I did meet Dean
So
Smith.
who's your favorite Red Sox player? If you had a James Taylor, choose out of the entire, the look you just gave me. But who
over the years?
Over the years, your Red Sox would be who?
Well, for me it starts with Babe Ruth and then Ted Williams and then Carl Yastrzemski and but I guess for me personally, Carl Yastrzemski back in the. When was that? The 60s, 67?
In the 70s, oh yeah.
60s,
in the 70s, yeah. Yaz is your guy?
Yeah, it was.
What do you think of Big Papi? What do you think?
Well, now, presently, Big Papi is he and Dustin Pedroia are the only people who are still left from 2004. So he has and I've met Big Papi, and he's a hero, for me. So, you can talk about the past, sort of this historical Red Sox, or you can talk about the 2004 Red Sox, or you can get a little bit sadder and talk about the current Red Sox.
Yeah. Well, they're out of the basement in time of you being here. They've played very well in the second half of the season, the current iteration of the Red Sox.
Yes, they have, and that's been really encouraging because it really felt bad for a while there early this season. It just felt lost, like an assemblage of unhappy contract holders, but it's such a mysterious and ineffable thing. What sparks a team, when I think about the 2004 team and the the 3 years that led up to that effort, that, well, there was a miracle that happened, and that's what Angels of Fenway is about that incredible, and what it was like, the sort of psychological state that Boston was in relative to the New York Yankees, what it was like to be in that position for all those years, and the curse of the Bambino and all that stuff. Anyway, I think of Jason Varitek as being sort of the glue, the sort of the heart of that team for some reason, and but there was something that made it come together, and that's really mysterious. What that is and why it happens, but when it happens, that's when when we as fans. We feel it, you know.
That's why we love it. We never know it's going to... And you can go through the turnstile one day into a stadium or sit down in front of your television set and turn it on and have no idea if that moment's about to spark something that might spark a song one day. It's truly remarkable. Should I make the proper leap that you're a Patriots guy, too, in football?
I am, yeah. Yeah, I'm a Patriots guy, too.
What'd you think of the whole Tom Brady stuff this summer, James Taylor?
I think that it's good that the union and that Brady and the team were able to seek some kind of redress for or some kind of mitigation that could basically re-examine the decision by the commissioner or by his deputy. Mm-hmm. You know, that because I thought that was draconian. I thought that was it went too far, you know, and I don't know why they were so punitive to Brady, but I'm glad that we had a chance to re-examine it and to back off that decision. Well, to vacate that decision.
Have you ever met Brady? Have you ever met Tom?
No, I never
Okay.
have. I know Bob Kraft, and but I've never. I played remember when they played in the old stadium at Fox?
Sure.
They played
with the metal seats and all that.
Yeah, it was freezing cold. They played the Jaguars, I think it was, or the Panthers, North Carolina team.
Yeah, the Carolina Panthers. Yeah.
Yeah. It was 19 degrees, and it's the coldest I have ever played the guitar. I mean, I had these big mittens on. I pulled them off and played the national anthem, put them right back on. It was freezing cold. It was the coldest.
Well,
the field was like iron.
Yeah.
I had no idea how people can, you know, I guess if you're from Michigan, or Green Bay, this is something you get used to, is playing on frozen ground.
Yeah.
But just walking on the field, it felt like iron.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how these guys can do it.
Yeah,
you know?
It's truly remarkable.
Yeah.
As are you, sir. I cannot thank you enough for coming here in the studio and chopping it up like you have. I have been a huge fan of yours forever. And my old cassette tape of your greatest hits got destroyed because I played it so much. And also, speaking on behalf of all guys everywhere who put on your music when they're around a lady, thank you very much, sir. I'm not the first guy who's ever said that, I'm sure, to you.
I wish I could get a royalty on that. Just a little corner is all I'm asking. Anyway.
Before This World is at the top of the charts. I'm holding up the CD. I'm holding up the vinyl.
Thank you, sir.
Go get it. This is awesome stuff. And I am, as I said, flabbergasted that you have come in the studio and honored. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. That's right. James Taylor here on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.